Okay, our first talk is about confronting existential concerns in the transition to first-time parenthood, a theoretical and therapeutic model, and will be given Shamon Rash. And will be given by Dr. Noga Levin Keini and Dr. Shirley Ben Shlomo. Noga, Shirley you already know. So Noga is a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist who specializes in psychoanalytic psychotherapy. She is a senior lecturer at Ashkelon College, and her research covers various themes, including the search for new means and dimensions of treatment and the creating of models that aid psychoanalytic psychotherapists. Her articles have been published in scientific journals and have been presented in international conferences. Please welcome Noga and Shirley. Yeah.
Thank you, and we're very happy to be here, Shirley and myself. And as Orit has said, our paper is regarding confronting existential concerns in the transition to parenthood, a theoretical and therapeutic model. The current lecture draws on Irving Yalom's theoretical existential model to examine how the transition to parenthood confronts first-time mothers and fathers with basic concerns: death, freedom, isolation, and lack of meaning. The underlying formula of existential psychodynamics, as described by Yalom, includes awareness of basic concerns, the awakening of anxiety, and the activation of defense mechanisms. The lecture will demonstrate the way in which the challenges associated with the transition to parenthood arouse these concerns, and a therapeutic intervention model based on existential concepts will be proposed. The theoretical and practical concepts will be illustrated by a clinical example. The existentialist approach maintains that the basic conflict is not the inborn drive that the environment, but rather between the individual and existential givens, which are an integral part of their very existence in the world. An awareness of these concerns leads to anxiety, with which a person copes through defense mechanisms, some conventional, such as those described by Freud, Anna Freud, and Sullivan, and others unique, designed to cope specifically with existential fears. Before presenting the model that Shirley and myself have written, I would like to say a few words on the existential theory. Yalom defines 4 basic concerns that lie at the core of dynamic existential conflict: death, freedom, existential isolation, and lack of meaning. Death. We live in the present, but one day we will all cease to be, to exist. The conflict here is between the awareness of inevitable death and the desire to continue living. Freedom. This refers to an absence of an organized external template that determines a person's actions. Freedom connotes an absence of solid ground under one's feet. Conflict. The conflict here is between the void and the yearning to find terra firma, existential isolation. Even when we are very close to others, an unbridgeable gap always remains. The conflict between the awareness of our total isolation and the desire for contact. Lack of meaning. If we're destined to die and we're alone in this world, what meaning is there to life? Conflict. The conflict here is between the search for meaning and the recognition that we live in a universe that has no meaning. Existential theoreticians relate to the manner in which the basic concerns in life and in the clinic are seen through 4 existential dimensions. Each dimension brings the person face to face with both their aspirations and their fears. The 4 dimensions are the physical dimension, the social dimension, the psychological dimension, and the spiritual one. The physical dimension. This is related to the material world. The existential aspiration in this dimension is one of survival, achievement of existential security. The social dimension. This dimension consists of attitude to others. It represents the public domain in which social norms and conventions impact our world's view. The psychological dimension concerns the individual attitude towards himself as consolidated through internal reflection. The spiritual dimension is related to the individual's attitude to beliefs, concepts, values, and principles around which they live. Just a second, I'm sorry. Existential theoreticians such as Binswanger, Van Duerzen, and Yalom relate to the manner in which the basic concerns in life and in the clinic are seen through the dimensions I have just mentioned. To fill this gap, we believe and we propose a cyclical model of psycho-existentialist attentiveness that comprises the following stages. A, the therapist listens to the basic concerns raised by the client through their narrative. B, the therapist allows the client narrative to resonate profoundly in their mind in order to attain a deep psycho-existentialist understanding of the discourse. C, the therapist constructs an intervention that is as appropriate as possible in view of the basic concerns reflected in the client's narrative. I would like to illustrate the use of the model by means of the following vignette. לא שומעים? Okay. Okay. Ron is married, and the a 3-month-old baby. He works in high tech. He arrived for consultation in a panic over the feelings that had overcome him since the birth of his daughter.
I got married relatively late. I had a lot of female partners and traveled all over the world. You could say I squeezed the most out of every opportunity life offered. I met my wife, with 10 years younger than me, during one of my business trips abroad. We were together for 3 years before we got married. We both know how to give the other person his space, and in this sense, our relationship is right for me. Soon after we got married, my wife got pregnant. Both of us wanted a child, and we waited excitedly for the baby to come. But after she was born, something like 2 or 3 weeks later, I began to feel imprisoned. It was like everything revolved around feeding and changing diapers. My wife also changed. Now I feel that I made a mistake in bringing this girl into the world, and I'm really scared. I honestly feel like leaving home and flying off to India. I've come to you as last resort. I don't know what to do.
The therapist discerns a profound experience of grieving and distress, making it difficult for Ron to make himself available for someone else's needs. It appears that for the first time in his life, he has to invest most of his emotional and physical resources in another, the baby. The therapist says, instead of giving you a sense of stability, becoming a father has wrought havoc on you. Your inner sense of freedom to choose to be your own master has suffered a blow.
But why? I looked forward to this baby so much.
You looked forward to being a father, but you didn't anticipate the sense of responsibility involved. The curtailing of personal freedom, the loss of mastery over your life. You've given yourself over entirely to see to someone else's needs.
Look, I bring home a good salary and the child doesn't lack for anything. I love her, but maybe I really do need a break. There is a good reason I keep thinking about going to India. That's where I got my head together when I was young.
The therapist identifies an imbalance in the psychological dimension aroused by the fear of responsibility. She understands that Ron is coping with this fear by means of the defense mechanism of shirking responsibility, and says, the concern for your daughter's need is very important, but it's also accompanied by losses, such as a demanding routine, and you have to adjust to a new lifestyle that's different from what you were used to before. The situation fills you with so much fear that you're prepared to go all the way to India to escape. Thus, the therapist stages a direct confrontation with the basis of new conflict in Ron's life. The conflict between the freedom to consider only his own needs, as he did before the baby, and the need to care for someone else.
To be honest, I tried to join an internet forum for new fathers, but I got depressed by all the talk of things like getting up in the middle of the night, playing in the park, all sorts of things that just aren't me.
Here the therapist identifies the use of another defense mechanism, the attempt to belong. But it didn't work, and it didn't succeed in allaying Ron's concerns. This group is supposed to serve as a support system, but it just revealed the gaps between the new identity as a father that you have to forge and your true state. You're not there yet. You have to allow time and space for the pain of foregoing the life you once had and will never have again.
I don't know if I made the right decision in becoming a father.
It's frightening to think that there are decisions we make in life that are irreversible, and we have to bear responsibility for them.
Do I have any chance of coping with it?
I think that the very fact that you came here indicates that you want to try and take responsibility for your new situation. I suggest that the first thing we do is try and understand what it means for you to accept responsibility, and when you did it in the past. Further discussions with Ron considered the various choices he had made in his life and whether they involved accepting responsibility. In light of the existentialist approach, the focal point of these talks was the manner in which the previous experiences shed light on his current decision, rather than Ron's personality traits.
One moment.
Okay? I'd like to analyze a little bit the meaning of this vignette. The therapist understood that what Ron wished to flee from most of all was the sense of weighty responsibility that had descended upon him, and not his daughter, whom he loved. She also understood that the upheaval caused by the fact that his decision to become a father was irreversible and entailed lifelong responsibility. The therapist understood also that after having absolute control over his own time for 40 years, the circumstances in which Ron now found himself could be frightening and even feel deterministic. Although he was clearly highly defensive in respect to the encounter with basic concerns, she felt that the fact he came for therapy indicated that he wanted help in other subjective experiences, as well as in his first attempt in investing in others, the social dimension. Ron would seem to be at the start of a journey involving a search for new meaning that is much less narcissistic and more social in nature. To summarize, the existentialistic approach proposes a different way of looking at the various aspects of the inner reality that clients bring to the meeting with their therapist. In this lecture, we have proposed a therapeutic model based on the principles of the existentialistic approach. Consisting of 3 stages. Stage 1, listening to the client's narrative. Stage 2, allowing it to resonate profoundly in the mind in order to obtain a deep and psycho-existential understanding of it. And stage 3, constructing an intervention based on the client's basic concerns, and also based on the regressive regions of his mind. Finally, the transition to parenthood is discussed here as an extreme experience. But it is important to bear in mind that other extreme experiences may occur simultaneously. For example, the transition to grandparenthood. When a son or daughter gives birth to the first grandchild, also represents an upheaval. Awareness of these issues on the part of the therapist working with first-time parents could open new channels in the clinic, as well as contribute to the process of growth and development of the client, and consequently of their whole family. Thank you.